And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan here with your Alaska aviation weather coming up here for the next couple of days going into midweek. I want to start out with, on this Tuesday morning, we have Shashalden volcano acting up again. It's located here toward the end of the Alaska Peninsula, far eastern Aleutians. And we have a cloud of ash that's elevated quite high at a flight level of 30 to 40,000 feet that's moving east-northeast at about 30 knots. Be overspreading portions of the northern Gulf by the time we get in the late afternoon, early this Monday evening, and then dissipating. There's a lower section that is drifting southwestward the opposite way, and that particular plume is from the surface to a flight level of 30,000 feet, working its way southwestward at about 20 knots, and we expect that to continue to drift off toward the southwest here as we go through the day today into early tonight. There will be another update coming up shortly around or after 2:30 p.m. Alaska time this Monday afternoon, so stay tuned to later forecasts. Check the latest updates for any sort of ash advisories. Also, the Katmai Nova Erupta volcano from the 1912 eruption, northwest winds are kicking up some ash there across Shelikof Strait. That should be settling down here later today. But looking at the flight weather here coming up Wednesday morning, there could be a little pocket of IFR here across the east central interior and just north of the Alaska Range and just east of Fairbanks, an area also up on the western Brooks Range in the northwest part of the state, and then areas of the intercoastal mountains of the Panhandle could see some IFR conditions Wednesday morning. More importantly, there is going to be an area of low pressure lift northward out of the North Pacific as we go through Wednesday into Thursday. That low will eventually be settling up here over the tip of the Alaska Peninsula with the central pressure falling down to near 980 millibars, and it's going to have some pretty substantial gale force and even storm force winds here in the North Pacific and just southwest of the Gulf as we go into Wednesday night and Thursday morning. IFR conditions are going to be along the north and northeast quadrant of the low as it lifts northward. And we expect IFR conditions to become more widespread Thursday morning, spreading further north into the Gulf and then along areas of the eastern Kenai coastline, including all of Kodiak Island and down, especially along the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians. Interior, though, cold and also seeing mainly VFR conditions, though brisk northeast to northeast-east flow coming in here off the mainland across the Yukon-Kuskokwim deltas. So keep that in mind. It'll be bumpy there along areas of the southwest coast, in addition to the stronger winds setting up here along areas of the western Gulf and back toward the Aleutians. And then that precipitation, lower cloud cover, frontal band, and some winds will pick up here along areas of the Gulf Coast and Panhandle on Thursday with IFR conditions widespread across the Gulf, along much of the Gulf Coast, pushing up into the Copper River Basin, east central Alaska Range, especially as we get into Thursday night, Friday. There's going to be additional snowfall in this area as that moisture encounters the colder air over the interior mainland. Anywhere in and around the Wrangell St. Elias Mountains, Talkeetna Mountains, the Alaska Range, 40-mile gold country. We'll see more accumulating snow breaking out as a result of that system, forcing that moisture further north into the colder air. So on Wednesday, though, across the Brooks Range, especially there at Anatuvik and Adigan Passes, VFR conditions will rule. Further south and west, Lake Clark and Merrill Passes there out toward the west arm of the Alaska Range, VFR, as will be Rainy Pass, Windy Pass there in the central Alaska Range. Early on Wednesday morning, there may be MVFR conditions on the north side of Isabel Pass, but otherwise becoming VFR for the day. Then Tasta Pass, MVFR in the morning, becoming VFR, and Tanita Pass should generally enjoy VFR conditions during the day on Wednesday there in the Copper River Basin. And then for Portage Pass, VFR conditions also anticipated on Wednesday ahead of that frontal system associated with the low that's going to push up into the low end there of the Alaska Peninsula. Chilkoot and White should manage to hold on to VFR conditions during the day on Wednesday. But again, conditions are going to deteriorate throughout the Gulf Coast and into the Panhandle Wednesday night into Thursday. Freezing levels at the surface are pretty much down here into south central areas in the early morning. To the north, generally temperatures at or below freezing. And we do see a bump in the freezing levels aloft ahead of the low. As the low lifts north and pulls up this way, the low will be centered over this region on Thursday. Warmer air ahead of it will be pushing up into the lower Gulf. We see freezing levels 8,000 feet here, kind of near the Gulf, North Pacific interface, and above 10 and 12,000 feet further south and east of there. On Wednesday, icing should not be a significant problem across anywhere in the mainland. There could be some isolated areas of moderate icing along the northwest coast, maybe Seward Peninsula. Increasing threat coming up here from the North Pacific. We'll start to see some hints of icing there along the Aleutians Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula extending up in the south end of Kodiak Island is the result of thicker cloud-covered, deeper moisture and some heavier precipitation, moderate to locally heavier rainfall associated on the north and northeast quadrant of the low. Winds aloft on Wednesday. We have a jet core from the west-northwest, 130 knots over western northwest Canada. Here, out just southwest of the Gulf in the North Pacific, southwest winds up to 115 knots. And there's a jet core just kind of down here at the bottom of the screen. And this trough of low pressure is kind of the broader upper level trough, bringing the surface low back to the north as we head into Thursday. Notice the stronger winds, mid-levels, 700 millibars, 9,000 feet, a broad belt of 40 to 50 knot winds with as high as 65 knots here in the North Pacific, lifting back toward the north and northwest. So this area here is going to see winds increasing along that northeastern quadrant of the low. And by Wednesday afternoon, we're going to see some pretty strong winds at 3,000 feet. There could be stronger winds upwards of 60, 50 to as high as 75 knots just south there of Kodiak Island. Also, winds are going to begin to increase Wednesday night and Thursday here along the YK Delta's strong easterly flow coming in and off the mainland. So turbulence on Wednesday, the greatest threat for turbulence and some severe turbulence possible there just south of Kodiak Island and just off of the Alaska Peninsula. There in the North Pacific. A broad area of moderate turbulence possible from Lake Iliamna, Shelikof Strait, the entrance of Cook Inlet, southwestward in through the central Aleutians, gently surface to 3,000 and surface to 4,000 feet here over the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island.